Hi, I'm Randy.
I'm Kathleen.
And I'm Susan.
And you're watching Word of Mouth. I saw Cymbeline. It's a William Shakespeare play, one of his lesser-known works. I think it was, he wrote it later on in his life, is my understanding.
Basically, it's about a king in this magical kind of kingdom, married to an evil queen. She has a son, which is his stepson. He has a daughter, which is played wonderfully by Martha Plimpton. She is supposed to be getting married to the stepson, her stepbrother, which is a little odd, but back in that day, I guess it wasn't so odd. But she's actually in love with another character.
Imogen falls in love with kind of an adopted brother figure. The king took him in when he was small, named Posthumus. They fall in love, they get married, the king goes berserk because he's a commoner. So he banishes Posthumus from the kingdom and he confines Imogen to the castle.
The rest of the play tracks her and him trying to get back together, trying to stay apart.
And in typical Shakespearean comedy fashion, there's mistaken identity. There are people in disguise. There are fights. There's a buffoon, and there are people talking about the action.
It is a comedy, although at the intermission, you're just waiting for all these awful things to happen. It's all set up for terrible things to happen, and it's really only a comedy in that in the last 10 minutes, everything is resolved so well for everybody.
John Cullum played the king, Phylicia Rashad played the queen, Martha Plimpton played the Princess Imogen, and Michael Cerveris played Imogen's husband, Posthumus. Those are the four main characters.
I thought Martha Plimpton was great. I've never seen her on stage before. She has a very Shakespearean presence, but she's very natural. The character, I think the role is just great.
She's old for the role. And you know, I can't believe I just said that because I think she's my age. But I think that Shakespeare's heroines have to be very, very young for you to believe that they would have the kinds of feelings they have.
She just played it very well. It's a role that calls for comedy, for tragedy, for grief, and she covered the gamut. She really did. I thought she did a fantastic job.
I really liked Adam Danheiser, who played the goofy stepson Cloten. He was the big comic relief throughout. Every time he was on stage, there were a lot of laughs. He hammed it up, but it was a funny role. He just a goof trying to be a noble prince, and he just wasn't pulling it off.
And he just does a wonderful job really bringing all the humor out in the lines that are written.
John Cullum played the king, and he's very regal. If you know who he is, his voice, he has a very deep, resonant voice, and he played the king very well.
Michael Cerveris, who I saw and loved in Sweeney Todd, did a really nice job. One thing kind of quirky that just distracted me was his height. Like, his presence on stage, he was shorter than most of the other males, and I felt like he should have had a larger stature. There's nothing he can help, but it was just one thing that's a little distracting to me.
Phylicia Rashad played the queen, who is, the character is very devious, very sly, kind of plotting and counter-plotting, and there's poison involved, and I liked her. She has a great stage presence, but I didn't really care for the voice that she was using.
I thought Phylicia Rashad was just awful. I thought she put on this accent that I found hard to understand and not, it struck me as very false.
It is a big production. The sets are not flashy, but they're very, I mean, it's a castle for the most part. You're either in the castle or you're in the woods for most of the show. And the sets were really cool. I mean, they were majestic, but they weren't overimposing. They almost felt minimal, and yet they weren't. I mean, they just really worked.
I liked the pageantry. The costumes were wonderful. I thought the lighting was great. The ideas, the language, You feel like you're not in New York City for a night.
I think it's one of those things where Shakespeare kind of took everything that he had, shook it up, and this is what came out.
I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it a lot. And it's long. I mean, it's easy to say at 11:30 on a Friday night you didn't enjoy it. I really enjoyed it. It was very worthwhile.
I liked it, I didn't love it. I think there's a reason why it's not staged very often, because it's very tough. I think it's tough to perform, I think it's tough to stage, and it's tough to watch because there are so many different elements in this one play. Usually with any Shakespearean play, even if I know the play very well, I make sure that I either reread the play or read a synopsis. This one, if you don't know the play, you really should read a synopsis before you go.
I would only suggest it, I think, for people who really like Shakespeare. I mean, it's not one I would have probably picked because I'm not a Shakespeare buff, but I feel better for having seen it, and I would tell somebody that, but I think you really have to be into Shakespeare or Shakespearean type shows to really enjoy it.
If one of mean affairs may plod it in a week, why may not I glide thither in a day? Then, true Pisanio, who longs like me to see thy lord, who longs, oh, let me bait, but not like me, yet longs, but in a fainter kind, oh, not like me, for mine's beyond, beyond